My dad wiped out my college fund to pay off my brother's gambling losses. And Mom claimed, Max needs it more than you. But when I went to the bank to shut down my account, the manager stopped me and murmured, "You have to see this." My parents had no idea what would unfold. Can you imagine looking at an acceptance letter to your dream medical school, only to have your entire future ripped away by your own family? It wasn't just heartbreak, it was a betrayal so profound. It shattered everything I thought I knew about love and trust. Story continues. It all started on a morning that should have been the happiest of my life. I was standing in my childhood bedroom, hands trembling, holding that beautiful acceptance letter to Columbia Medical School. All my dreams, all my hard work, laid out in front of me in black and white. This is it, I thought, a huge smile spreading across my face. But then, the door opened and my parents walked in. Their faces were grim, completely devoid of the joy I'd expected. I knew instantly. Something was terribly wrong. My dad cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. "Almeida, we need to talk about your college fund. I've emptied it to pay for Max's gambling debts." My mom gently touched my shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "Family comes first, sweetie. Max needs this more than you need medical school." My entire world, it just crumbled. In that single, sickening moment, I realized my future had just been stolen. Not by some stranger, not by a natural disaster, but by the two people who were supposed to protect me most. 3 days passed, and I was still numb. Still couldn't process what they'd done. Our house, my home, felt different now, every corner holding a fresh echo of betrayal. I sat at the kitchen table, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate, while my mom hummed a cheerful tune at the stove. How could she? I wanted to scream. How could she stand there, acting like this was any other morning, when they'd just taken $180,000 that belonged to me and handed it over to my brother? "You should eat something, honey," she said, glancing over. "You've barely touched your food." "I'm not hungry," I managed to say, my voice flat, devoid of any emotion. Memories flooded my mind, each one a testament to how hard I'd worked. Since I was 16, I'd juggled 3 jobs. Weekday mornings, I was at the coffee shop by 5:30. Evenings, I tutored younger kids in math and science. Weekends, I filed papers at a medical clinic, soaking up every bit of knowledge about the profession I dreamed of entering. Every single paycheck went straight into that account. Every birthday card with money from relatives. Every academic scholarship I'd earned through countless hours of studying. And then there was Grandma Eleanor's contribution, the biggest chunk of all, $50,000 she'd left specifically for my education when she passed 2 years ago. She'd held my hand in the hospital, her voice weak but determined, making me promise to become the doctor she knew I could be. "Your future matters, sweet girl," she'd whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." A sudden sound from the living room yanked me back to the present. The unmistakable beeping of a video game. My stomach churned. I pushed back from the table and walked toward the noise. There he was. Max. My 28-year-old brother, sprawled across Dad's leather recliner, game controller in hand. Empty soda cans and chip bags littered the coffee table. "Oh, hey sis," he said, not even looking away from the screen. "Mom's making pancakes later if you want some." The casualness of his greeting, it ignited something. A white-hot rage. "Are you serious right now?" He paused the game, finally meeting my eyes. "What? What? You stole my entire future and you're asking me what?" My voice was trembling. Max rolled his eyes and unpaused his game. "God, you're so dramatic. It's not like you can't apply for loans or something." "Loans?" My voice cracked. "Do you have any idea how long I worked for that money? How many 16-hour days I put in? Look, I didn't ask Dad to raid your college fund, okay? He made that choice. Because of your gambling debts. How much did you lose, Max? How much was my future worth to you?" He shifted uncomfortably, still playing. "It's complicated." "No, it's not complicated. It's a number." "How much?" My mom appeared in the doorway, dish towel in her hands. "Almeida, please. Your brother's been through enough." "He's been through enough?" I whirled to face her. "What about what I'm going through?" "Sweetheart, you have to understand. Those people he owed money to, They weren't the kind of people you can just ignore. They made threats. So, you sacrificed my education to save him from his own choices. Dad entered from the garage, oil stains on his shirt. He'd been avoiding me, hiding in his workshop or under the hood of his Chevrolet. "That's enough, Almeida," he said, his voice carrying that tone of authority I'd respected my whole life. "Not anymore." I shot back. "No, Dad. It's not enough. I want to know everything. How many times have you bailed him out before this?" My parents exchanged a look that told me everything. This wasn't the first time. Not even close. "How many times?" I pressed. Mom sank into a chair, suddenly looking older. "A few times." "Define a few." "4," Dad admitted. This was the 5th. "And how much in total?" Silence stretched between us until Max finally spoke up, without looking away from his game. "About $300,000 over the past 6 years." My legs felt weak. $300,000. They'd been hemorrhaging money to save Max from himself, while I worked myself to exhaustion for every penny. "But this time was different," Max added, as if that made it better. "This time I was in real trouble. I'd figured out a system for online poker and sports betting. It was working great until it wasn't." "There's no system for gambling, you idiot." I shot back. "The house always wins." "You don't understand how it works," he said defensively. "I was up huge at one point, almost $500,000. I could have paid everyone back and had money left over. But you didn't stop." "I was going to. I just needed one more big win to set everything right." Dad stepped forward, his voice low. "The people he owed weren't patient anymore. They showed up at his apartment. Then they found out where we lived. So you gave them my money." "We gave them what we had to give them to keep our family safe," Mom said, tears streaming down her face. "Now, my entire college fund, $180,000 gone. We'll figure something out," Dad promised. "Maybe a payment plan with the school or—" "Columbia doesn't do payment plans for medical school, Dad. You either have the money or you don't. And, thanks to you, I don't." I turned to leave, but Max's voice stopped me. "You know what your problem is, Almeida? You think you're better than everyone? Acting all high and mighty because you got into some fancy school." "No, Max. I don't think I'm better than everyone. I just think I deserve what I earned." "Family comes first," he said, echoing Mom's words. "Isn't that what we were always taught?" "Family doesn't steal from family," I replied, my voice shaking with disgust. As I headed back to my room, I heard Mom sobbing and Dad trying to comfort her. They were acting like they were the victims here. I closed my door and pulled out my laptop, starting to research student loans. The numbers made me sick. Even if I qualified for the maximum amount, I'd graduate with over $400,000 in debt. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, my best friend since middle school. "How did the parents take the news about Columbia?" "Bet they're super proud." I stared at the message, not knowing how to explain that my parents had just guaranteed I'd never make it to Columbia at all. Another text came through. "Hello? Earth to Almeida? You're killing me with the suspense." I typed back slowly, "Can I stay with you for a few days? I'll explain everything." Her response was immediate, "Of course." "What's wrong?" What was wrong? Everything. My brother was a gambling addict who felt no remorse. My parents were enablers who chose him over me. And I was the fool who trusted them with my future. I pulled out the acceptance letter again, running my fingers over the Columbia letterhead. All those years of work, all those sacrifices, gone. Because my brother couldn't walk away from a poker table. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was looking around my room. All the medical textbooks I'd bought in preparation. The stethoscope Grandma Eleanor had given me for my 21st birthday. The vision board covered with pictures of doctors I admired. I'd built my entire identity around this dream, and my family had sold it off like it meant nothing. A knock on my door interrupted my spiral. "Almeida," Dad's voice. "Can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I opened the door to find him holding a manila folder. "What's that?" "Documents from the bank. I thought you should see what we were dealing with." I took the folder and flipped through the papers, withdrawal slips, transfer authorizations. My signature on every one of them. Except, I'd never signed these documents. Dad, I said slowly, ice forming in my veins. These have my signature on them. He couldn't meet my eyes. The bank required dual authorization for withdrawals over $10,000. You forged my signature. I had no choice. You committed fraud against your own daughter. I was protecting the family. No, I said, handing back the folder. You were protecting Max. And you made me collateral damage. As he walked away, shoulders slumped, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would go to the bank. I needed to know exactly what had happened to my money. Every transaction, every detail. Because something about this whole situation felt wrong. Not just morally wrong, but factually wrong. The numbers didn't add up. If Max had owed $180,000 in gambling debts, why did these documents show transfers totaling over $200,000? I grabbed my coat and car keys. Screw waiting until tomorrow. I was going to the bank right now. But as I passed through the living room, I froze. Max was on the phone, speaking in a low voice. No, I told you I got you the money, he said. My family came through. Yeah, the full amount. What do you mean it's not enough? We had a deal. He noticed me standing there and quickly ended the call. Private conversation, he muttered. Who is that? Nobody. Business stuff. Business? You haven't had a job in 2 years. You don't know everything about my life, Almeida. Apparently, I don't know anything about anyone in this family, I retorted. I left him there with his video games and his secrets. But his words echoed in my mind as I drove toward the bank. What did he mean it wasn't enough? They'd given him everything I had. The bank would be closing soon, but I had to try. I needed answers because suddenly I wasn't sure my brother had been honest about his debts. And if he'd lied about that, what else had he lied about? As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw Mrs. Patricia Holbrook's car still there. She'd been our family banker for 15 years. She'd helped me open my first savings account when I was 10 years old, proud of the $20 I'd saved from my allowance. If anyone could help me understand what had happened, it would be her. I just prayed she'd be willing to tell me the truth, because I had a sinking feeling that what I'd discovered so far was just the tip of the iceberg, and my family. They were all in way deeper than any of us realized. The First National Bank of Chicago stood before me like it had for the past 12 years. But today, it felt different. Today, I wasn't here to deposit my hard-earned wages or scholarship checks. I was here to close what remained of my account and salvage whatever dignity I had left. The security guard, Robert, recognized me immediately. Almeida, haven't seen you in a few weeks. How's medical school planning going? The question felt like a knife twisting in my chest, but I managed a weak smile. It's complicated. Well, I'm sure you'll figure it out. You always were the responsible one in your family. If only he knew. I walked past the familiar teller windows where I'd made countless deposits over the years. Sarah, who'd always complimented my dedication, gave me a wave. Marcus, who'd helped me set up my high-yield savings account, called out a greeting. These people had watched me save every penny for 6 years. Now I had to face them knowing it was all gone. Almeida, is that you? I turned to see Mrs. Patricia Holbrook emerging from her office. Late 50s, silver hair always pulled back in an elegant bun. She'd been more than just our banker. She'd taught financial literacy classes at my high school, encouraging students to save and invest wisely. She'd been the one to suggest the specific account structure that would maximize my interest earnings for college. Hi, Mrs. Holbrook, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She studied my face with those sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Come to my office, dear. You look like you need to sit down. I followed her past the cubicles to her corner office. Diplomas and banking certifications lined one wall. Photos of her grandchildren decorated her desk. It was a space that radiated warmth and trustworthiness. Tea, she offered, already reaching for her electric kettle. No, thank you. I'm actually here to close my account. Her hand paused mid-reach. Close it? But you just got into Columbia. Your father mentioned it when he was here last week. Yes, well, circumstances have changed. She settled into her chair, fingers steepled. Almeida, I've known you since you were 10 years old. I've watched you save methodically for 12 years. What's really going on? My father already told you. He made the withdrawals. Yes, he did. All $217,000 worth. I blinked. $217,000? He told me it was $180. Patricia's expression darkened. I see. Well, that's concerning in itself, but there's more we need to discuss. More. She turned to her computer, typing rapidly. When your father came in for the first withdrawal, something struck me as odd. You'd specifically set up your account to require dual signatures for any withdrawal over $10,000. Do you remember doing that? Of course. You suggested it as a safety measure. Exactly. Yet your father had documentation with your signature authorizing these transfers. My throat felt dry. He forged them. I suspected as much, Patricia said quietly, which is why I documented everything meticulously. I also activated our security protocols. She turned her monitor toward me, showing a series of bank documents. Each one bore a signature that looked like mine, but wasn't. The forgeries were good, but not perfect. A slightly different curve on the a hesitation in the D that I never had. I couldn't refuse the transactions with the documentation he provided, Patricia continued. But I could ensure everything was recorded. So you knew he was stealing from me and did nothing? I asked, a fresh wave of anger washing over me. I did something, Almeida. I followed federal banking regulations to the letter, including the requirement to report suspicious activity. My heart skipped. You reported it? Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first. But there's something else you need to see. She pulled up security footage on her screen. This is from last Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. I watched grainy footage of my father entering the bank, but he wasn't alone. Max was with him, and so was another man I didn't recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive-looking suit that seemed out of place in our suburban bank. Who's that with them? Patricia's voice dropped lower. That's Vincent Torino. He's what we in the banking industry call a person of interest. What does that mean? It means he's suspected of running illegal lending operations. Loan sharking, to be blunt. We've had federal alerts about him for the past 3 years. I stared at the screen as the 3 men approached a teller window. My father looked nervous, constantly wiping his forehead. Max kept glancing at the exits. But Vincent Torino stood perfectly calm, like he owned the place. They weren't paying off gambling debts to some casino, I said slowly. They were paying a loan shark. That would be my assessment, Patricia agreed. And based on Mr. Torino's presence here, I'd say your brother was in significant danger. But why would Max borrow from a loan shark if he was gambling online? Patricia pulled up another set of documents. That's what puzzled me too. So, I did some digging. These are the transfer destinations for your funds. I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to offshore accounts, cryptocurrency exchanges, wire services that specialized in untraceable transactions. This is sophisticated, Patricia noted. Not typical for covering gambling losses. This looks more like money laundering, I finished, a chill running down my spine. I can't make that accusation officially, but yes, the pattern is concerning. I thought back to Max's phone conversation, his insistence that he'd paid the full amount. Mrs. Holbrook, I asked, my voice barely a whisper, is it possible my brother was into something more than just gambling? She leaned back in her chair. In my 30 years of banking, I've seen all sorts of financial crimes. Gambling addicts typically have messy finances, but straightforward debts. This, she gestured at the screen, this is organized, deliberate. What should I do? First, you need to know that I'm required by law to file a suspicious activity report. The forgery alone mandates it, but combined with Mr. Torino's involvement and these transfer patterns, I have no choice. Which means federal investigators will be looking into this within 72 hours. Your father will likely face charges for the forgery. Your brother's activities will be scrutinized. Your family's assets may be frozen during the investigation. The room spun slightly. All of them? Even my parents' retirement. If the investigators believe the accounts are connected to criminal activity, yes. But they're victims too, in a way. My father was trying to protect Max. Patricia's expression softened. I understand that, dear, but the law doesn't make exceptions for good intentions. Your father committed fraud. That's a federal crime. She opened a drawer and pulled out a business card. This is the person I'll be filing the report with. Special Agent Diana Morrison with the Financial Crimes Division. She's thorough but fair. I took the card with numb fingers. Will I get any of my money back? That depends on what the investigation uncovers. If the transfers can be proven fraudulent, there's a possibility. But if the money's already been dispersed through offshore accounts, it's gone. Most likely, yes. We sat in silence for a moment before Patricia spoke again. Almeida, there's one more thing. Your grandmother's contribution to your fund came with specific legal stipulations. Do you remember the details of her will? I tried to focus through the fog in my brain. She said it was for education only. More than that. She established it as an educational trust with you as the sole beneficiary. Your parents had no legal right to touch that money, forgery or not. Hope flickered in my chest. So I could recover at least that $50,000? Potentially more. The trust included provisions for damages if the funds were misappropriated. You'd need an estate attorney, but you might have grounds for recovering the full amount plus penalties. Why didn't the bank protect those funds separately? Because your father presented himself as the trustee when he consolidated the accounts 5 years ago. Another forgery, I'm now realizing. I laughed bitterly. Is there anything in my life he didn't forge? I'm sorry, Almeida. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. No, I'm glad you told me. At least now I know the full scope of what I'm dealing with. Patricia stood and walked around the desk, placing a maternal hand on my shoulder. You're a brilliant young woman. Don't let this derail your dreams completely. How can I not? Medical school starts in 3 months, and I have $17 to my name. $17 and the truth, she corrected. That's more than your family has right now. As I prepared to leave, Patricia called out one last time. Almeida, when the investigators contact you, and they will, tell them everything. Don't try to protect your family. They made their choices, and now there are consequences. What about Max? If he really is mixed up with dangerous people, that's for law enforcement to handle. Your job is to protect yourself and your future. I left the bank feeling simultaneously vindicated and terrified. The security tapes, the forged documents, the connection to Vincent Torino, it all painted a picture far worse than simple gambling debts. My family wasn't just in financial trouble. They were in legal trouble. Criminal trouble. As I sat in my car, staring at Agent Morrison's business card, my phone rang. Where are you? Mom asked, panic evident in her voice. Max just got a call. Those people want more money. They're saying the payment wasn't enough. I'm at the bank, Mom, and we have bigger problems than whatever Max owes. What do you mean? Dad's forgeries were documented. The bank is filing federal reports. There's going to be an investigation. Silence. Then, you talked to them about this? How could you betray your family like that? I didn't betray anyone. Dad did, when he stole my future. We're your parents. We fed you, clothed you, sheltered you for 22 years, and this is how you repay us. By expecting you not to steal from me? Yes, Mom. That's exactly how I repay you. She hung up. I sat there for another 10 minutes, watching the sunset over the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, my brother was making deals with dangerous people, using money that was supposed to fund my dreams. My parents were probably huddled together, figuring out how to blame me for the tsunami about to hit them. And I was sitting in a bank parking lot, holding the business card of a federal agent who would soon be dismantling my family's lies. But Patricia was right about one thing. I had $17 and the truth. And sometimes, that's all you need to start fighting back. I pulled out of the parking lot with a strange sense of calm. Let the investigation come. Let them uncover every forgery, every lie, every betrayal. Because I was done protecting people who'd never protected me. As I drove, I made a mental list of what I needed to do. Find a lawyer who understood educational trusts. Cooperate fully with the federal investigation. Start applying for every scholarship, grant, and legal loan I could find. And most importantly, stop believing that family came first, when that family had proven I came last. My phone buzzed with another call from home. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever crisis they were manufacturing now, it wasn't my problem anymore. I had my own future to salvage. And if I had to build it from $17 and the ashes of my family's crimes, then that's exactly what I'd do. I'd been staying at Rachel's apartment for 3 days, trying to process everything Patricia Holbrook had revealed. Her pull-out couch wasn't comfortable, but it was better than being under the same roof as my parents. I'd just finished submitting online applications for emergency scholarships when Rachel burst through the door. "Almeida, there are federal agents at your parents' house." My mom just drove by and saw 3 black SUVs in the driveway. My heart hammered as I grabbed my keys. Despite everything, they were still my family. "I have to go." "Are you insane? You just told me your dad committed fraud. I can't let them face this alone." Rachel caught my arm. "They let you face losing your future alone." She was right. But I couldn't shake the image of my mother's terrified face. "I'll be careful." The 15-minute drive to my childhood home felt like hours. Sure enough, black government vehicles lined our quiet suburban street. Neighbors stood on their lawns, openly gawking. Mrs. Chin from next door caught my eye and quickly looked away. By tomorrow, the entire neighborhood would know the Reynolds family was under federal investigation. I parked behind the last SUV and walked up the driveway on shaking legs. The front door stood open, voices carrying from inside. "I'm telling you, I acted alone." My father's voice, strained and desperate. "My wife had nothing to do with this." "Mr. Reynolds, we have evidence suggesting otherwise." A woman's crisp voice responded. "Lying to federal agents is a crime unto itself." I stepped inside to find my family huddled at the dining room table. 3 agents in dark suits stood around them. One was a woman in her 40s with sharp features and calculating eyes. She noticed me immediately. "You must be Almeida," she said. "Special Agent Diana Morrison, Financial Crimes Division." The name from Patricia's business card. So the investigation had moved even faster than predicted. I confirmed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Good. We have questions for you as well." My mother looked up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Almeida, tell them this is a misunderstanding. Tell them we're a good family." Agent Morrison pulled out a chair. "Please sit. We were just discussing the forged signatures on your account withdrawals." I sat down, avoiding my father's pleading gaze. "What do you need to know? Did you authorize your father to withdraw $217,000 from your education savings?" "No. I only learned about it after it was gone." "She's lying," Max interjected. "She probably forgot she signed those papers." Agent Morrison's partner, a younger man with kind eyes, slid a document across the table. "Mr. Reynolds, are you suggesting your sister signed this authorization on March 15th, when credit card records show she was in Wisconsin for an academic conference?" Max's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I'd forgotten about that conference on molecular biology. For days in Madison, paid for by a research grant I'd won. "First, maybe I got the dates mixed up," Max stammered. "You seem to mix up a lot of things," Agent Morrison observed. She pulled out a tablet and began scrolling. "Like your employment history. You told your family you lost your job at Henderson Financial 2 years ago due to downsizing." "That's right," Max said, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "Interesting, because Henderson Financial's HR department says you were terminated for suspicion of insider trading. They filed reports with the SEC." My mother gasped. "Max, is that true?" "They couldn't prove anything," he muttered. "No, but the investigation did uncover your gambling problem," Morrison continued. "Which is how you ended up owing money to Vincent Torino." At the mention of that name, my father went rigid. "We paid him every penny he was owed." "Did you?" Morrison's tone suggested she knew otherwise. "Because Mr. Torino's associates seem to think your son still owes them quite a bit. In fact, they're under the impression Max has been selling them something other than money." "I don't know what you're talking about," Max said, feigning ignorance. The third agent, who'd been silent until now, placed a laptop on the table and turned it toward us. "Then perhaps you can explain these communications from your encrypted messaging app." The screen showed conversation threads with usernames like VT_money and Torino_collects. But it wasn't the names that made my blood run cold. It was the content. Package delivered. Names and socials as requested. One message from Max read. Another. Got 12 more from the company database. Same price as before. "You were selling personal information?" I breathed, horror washing over me. "From Henderson Financial's clients?" Those are privileged financial records, Agent Morrison said, including social security numbers, bank accounts, investment portfolios. Perfect for identity theft and financial fraud. My mother started sobbing in earnest. Max, how could you? I had no choice, he exploded, slamming his fist on the table. They were going to kill me. Do you understand that? Actually kill me. So, you gave them the tools to destroy other people's lives instead? I asked, a bitter taste in my mouth. Don't act so righteous, Almeida. You have no idea what I've been dealing with. Then enlighten us, Morrison said coolly. Start from the beginning. Max looked at our father, who nodded slightly. With a heavy sigh, my brother began his confession. It started 3 years ago. I was doing well at Henderson, but I wanted more. Faster cars, better apartments, the whole lifestyle. Sports betting seemed like easy money at first. It always does, the younger agent murmured. I had a system, Max insisted, that familiar delusion creeping back into his voice. Statistical analysis, probability matrices. For a while, it worked. I was up big. Really big. How much? Morrison asked. Almost $500,000 at one point. I wanted to scream. He'd had enough to pay for my medical school twice over. But you didn't stop, Morrison prompted. I was going to. Just needed one more big score. There was this sure thing, inside information about a game, which was a setup. Torino's people fed you false information to hook you deeper, Morrison finished. Max nodded miserably. Lost everything in one weekend. And then some. When I couldn't pay, they offered me a deal. Information from Henderson's databases in exchange for reducing my debt. Which is why you really lost your job, I said, putting the pieces together. They caught you accessing files you shouldn't have. I was careful, but not careful enough. Agent Morrison leaned forward. How much information did you steal, Max? I don't know. Hundreds of profiles, maybe more. Try thousands, the quiet agent corrected. We've been tracking the identity theft ring connected to Torino for 18 months. Your data contributed to over $3 million in fraudulent activities. The number hung in the air like a toxic cloud. My mother had stopped crying, staring at Max like she'd never seen him before. My father sat with his head in his hands. But I stopped, Max said weakly. When I lost the job, I stopped giving them information. No, you just found new ways to pay, Morrison said. She pulled up bank records on her tablet. Like convincing your father to take out a second mortgage, telling him it was for gambling debts when really Torino was blackmailing you about the stolen data. Another piece clicked into place. That's why Dad was so desperate. He wasn't just protecting Max from physical harm. He was protecting him from federal prosecution. Bingo, Morrison said. Though I'm afraid that ship has sailed. She stood, and her partners followed suit. Maxwell Reynolds, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, and violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. No. My mother lunged forward, but the younger agent gently held her back. Mom, don't, I said. You'll only make it worse. As they cuffed Max, he looked at me with genuine fear in his eyes. Almeida. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did, I replied. Every time you chose to steal instead of stop. Every time you let Dad bail you out. Every time you picked your addiction over your family. They let him out in handcuffs as neighbors openly stared and photographed. My mother collapsed into my father's arms, but he was looking at Agent Morrison. What about the house? He asked. The mortgage. That depends on your cooperation, Morrison replied. The forged signatures alone could result in serious charges. But if you're willing to testify about your son's activities and your interactions with Torino, I'll do whatever you need, my father said quickly. Just please, my wife wasn't involved. Morrison studied them both. We'll need to verify that. In the meantime, your assets will be frozen pending investigation. That includes all bank accounts, retirement funds, and yes, the house may be subject to seizure if we find it was used as collateral in criminal enterprises. Where will we live? My mother whispered. That's something you'll need to figure out. I suggest finding a lawyer. A good one. As the agents prepared to leave, Morrison handed me a card. We'll need your full statement tomorrow, 9 a.m. at the Federal Building. I'll be there. She paused at the door. Your banker, Patricia Holbrook, she spoke highly of you. Said you were the only honest one in the family. I don't feel honest. I feel like I should have seen this coming. Victims often blame themselves. Don't. Your brother made his choices, and your parents made theirs. The only choice you're responsible for is your own. After they left, the house felt hollow. My parents sat at the table like broken dolls. The neighbors had retreated indoors, but I knew the damage was done. By morning, everyone would know the Reynolds family had harbored a criminal. This is your fault, my mother said quietly, not looking at me. My fault. I exploded. If you hadn't gone to the bank, hadn't talked to them. Mom, Max was selling stolen identities. Dad committed fraud. How is any of that my fault? We could have handled it as a family. Like you've handled everything else? By covering it up and enabling Max. My father finally spoke. She's right, Helen. We created this mess. Don't you dare take her side. There are no sides here, I said, exhaustion washing over me. There's just the truth. And the truth is, you chose Max over everything else. Over me, over your retirement, over your home. And he played you for fools. He's our son, my mother insisted. And I'm your daughter. But that never seemed to matter as much. I stood to leave, but my father caught my hand. Almeida, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am so deeply sorry. I looked at his weathered face, saw the man who taught me to ride a bike and helped with science projects, the man who'd also stolen my future without hesitation. I know you are, Dad. But sorry doesn't get me into medical school. As I drove back to Rachel's apartment, my phone buzzed with messages. Word was already spreading. Former classmates expressing shock. Extended family demanding explanations. Everyone wanting to know how the responsible Reynolds kid could have a criminal for a brother. But one message stood out from an unknown number. Miss Reynolds, my name is Jonathan Sterling. I'm a forensic accountant who specializes in recovering assets from financial crimes. I believe I can help you reclaim what was stolen. Call me. I pulled over and stared at the message. After everything that had happened today, I should have been suspicious of strangers offering help. But what did I have to lose? My family was shattered. My brother was in federal custody, and my parents would likely lose everything. Maybe it was time to stop playing defense and start fighting back. I saved the number and continued driving. Tomorrow, I'd give my statement to the federal agents. But tonight, I'd call this Jonathan Sterling and find out if there was any hope of salvaging my dreams from the wreckage of my family's crimes. Because Agent Morrison was right about one thing, the only choice I was responsible for was my own, and I chose to fight. 6 months had passed since that terrifying day when Max wore a wire to meet his lawyer. The recording had been devastating proof that the lawyer was indeed feeding information to Torino's organization. The FBI had used it to flip him. And like dominoes, others in the organization began cooperating to save themselves. Today, I stood before the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago, an imposing mountain I'd been climbing for months. Today was the day everything would either come together or fall apart. Max was testifying before the grand jury, and Vincent Torino's entire organization was about to face justice. Jonathan Sterling stood beside me on the courthouse steps, his presence a steady comfort. Remember, you don't have to watch the testimony. You can wait in the witness room, he offered. No, I said firmly. I need to see this through. Inside the courthouse, Agent Morrison met us at security. Your brother's in protective custody. He'll testify via closed-circuit video for his safety. Is he really in that much danger? I asked. 3 of Torino's associates have already pleaded guilty and provided information about planned retaliation. So, yes, the danger is real. We made our way to a secured viewing room where families of witnesses could watch the proceedings. My parents were already there, sitting in the front row. My mother had lost weight, her face gaunt with stress. My father looked like he'd aged a decade in 6 months. They turned as I entered, hope flickering in their eyes. I chose a seat several rows behind them. The gulf between us felt appropriate. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Catherine Walsh, began by establishing Max's credentials. On the screen, my brother looked different. Prison had stripped away his cockiness, leaving someone hollow-eyed and remorseful. Mr. Reynolds, Walsh began. Please tell the grand jury how you first became involved with Vincent Torino's organization. Max's testimony was devastating in its detail. He explained a progression from sports betting to underground poker games, from borrowing money to selling information. He named names, provided dates, described meetings in warehouse basements and parking garages. The data theft from Henderson Financial, Walsh prompted. Tell us about that. It started small, Max said, his voice cracking. Just a few names and social security numbers to reduce my debt. But they kept wanting more. Anthony Torino said I could clear my entire debt with one big score. What was the big score? The entire private client database. Over 10,000 high-net-worth individuals with complete financial profiles. Gasps echoed through the viewing room. Even I hadn't known the full scope. Did you provide this information? No. That's when I started recording conversations. I knew I was in too deep, but I thought if I had leverage. You thought you could blackmail them, Walsh finished. I thought I could protect myself. Max looked directly at the camera. I was wrong. They found out about the recordings and threatened my family. That's when I went to my father for help. The testimony continued for 3 hours. Max detailed the structure of Torino's organization, the money laundering methods, the connections to other crime families. He produced documents, identified voices on recordings, and laid bare a criminal enterprise that had operated for over a decade. When Walsh asked about the impact on his family, Max broke down completely. I destroyed everything, he sobbed. My sister lost her medical school fund because of me. My parents lost their home, their retirement, their reputation. I took a family that loved me and tore it apart for money I threw away on stupid bets. Do you take responsibility for your actions? Yes, all of it. I'm a thief, a liar, and I betrayed everyone who ever cared about me. Almeida worked 3 jobs to save for school while I was stealing from innocent people. She's everything I should have been. I found myself crying, despite my anger. My mother turned around, reaching toward me, but I shook my head. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about truth. The testimony shifted to specific transactions, and that's when the biggest revelation came. Max had actually won $500,000 6 months before taking my college fund. But instead of paying his debts, he lost it all, chasing an even bigger score. You could have walked away, Walsh stated. I know. God, I know, he cried. But I was sick, addicted. I convinced myself the next bet would set me up for life. Meanwhile, your family was preparing to sacrifice everything for debts you could have paid. Yes. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. When court recessed, I stepped into the hallway for air. Jonathan found me leaning against a window, staring at the Chicago skyline. How are you holding up? He had $500,000, I said numbly. He could have paid everything and had money left over. Addiction isn't logical, Almeida. It's a sickness. I know. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. Agent Morrison approached us. Torino's lawyer is negotiating a plea deal. Between Max's testimony and the others who flipped, he's looking at 25 to life. He'll take a deal. So, it's really over? The criminal case. Yes, but there's something else. She handed me an envelope. The asset forfeiture from Torino's organization has been approved. Victim compensation will begin next month. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. The number at the bottom made me gasp. $650,000? RICO laws allow for treble damages, Morrison explained. Your initial loss times 3, plus interest. I can go to medical school, I whispered, tears welling up. I can actually go. Jonathan smiled. Columbia's holding your spot. I spoke to admissions last week. The afternoon brought more testimony, including my parents taking the stand to corroborate Max's timeline. They admitted to enabling his addiction, to ignoring warning signs, to choosing the path of least resistance rather than getting him help. During a break, I encountered my father in the hallway. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I know you hate us, he said quietly, and you have every right to. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you for standing up to us. For refusing to enable the sickness that consumed our family. I don't hate you, Dad. I hate what you did. There's a difference. Is there any chance, any possibility that someday you might forgive us? I considered the question. I don't know. Maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean we go back to being a family. I understand. Do you? Because Mom still texts me every day asking when I'm coming home. He gave a sad smile. She's struggling to accept reality. We're in therapy now, trying to understand how we became people who would steal from one child to save another. Are you learning anything? He asked. That we mistook enabling for love. That we were so afraid of losing Max that we lost you instead. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their actions. Yeah, well, better late than never, I guess. We stood in awkward silence until he spoke again. The house sold. After the mortgage and legal fees, there wasn't much left. But I set aside something. He pulled out a check. It's only $5,000, but it's yours. No strings, no expectations. Just something toward your future. I stared at the check. $5,000. A fraction of what they'd taken, but somehow significant in its symbolism. This is from your personal account? Yes. Money I earned doing overtime at the plant. Your mother doesn't even know about it. I pocketed the check. Thank you, Almeida. Dad, we're not there yet. Maybe we never will be. But this is a start. The final testimony of the day came from Vincent Torino himself, who had indeed taken a plea deal. 20 years in federal prison, forfeiture of all assets, and full cooperation against his associates. Watching him on the screen, this man who had terrorized my family, I expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt empty. He was just another criminal who'd preyed on people's weaknesses. Max's weakness had opened the door, but Torino had walked through it eagerly. As the proceedings ended, Catherine Walsh approached me. Miss Reynolds, I wanted to personally thank you. Your courage in coming forward started this entire investigation. I just wanted my money back. You got much more than that. 14 members of a major crime syndicate are going to prison. Hundreds of identity theft victims will receive compensation. Your brother's testimony is the cornerstone of all of it. That evening, I had dinner with Jonathan at a quiet restaurant near the courthouse. We'd become friends over these months, bonded by the strange journey of seeking justice. So, what now? He asked. Medical school in the fall. That's the plan. Although it feels surreal. 6 months ago, I was sleeping on Rachel's couch with $17 to my name. You've come a long way. With a lot of help. I raised my wine glass. Thank you for everything. You're the one who did the hard work. Facing your family, testifying, refusing to back down, even when they threatened you. Speaking of which, any word on Anthony Torino? Arrested in Miami, trying to flee the country. He'll be tried separately, but with his uncle cooperating, he's looking at significant time. Relief washed over me. The man who'd stalked me, threatened me, made me afraid to leave the house. He was behind bars. There's something else, Jonathan said, producing an envelope. This came to my office. It's addressed to you. I recognized Max's handwriting immediately. Inside was a single page, his words careful and measured. Almeida, I know a letter can't undo what I've done. I stole your future because I was too weak to face my own failures. You worked for everything while I looked for shortcuts. You saved while I squandered. You built while I destroyed. I'm going to prison for a long time. I've accepted that. What I can't accept is that you might not achieve your dreams because of me. So, I'm giving you the only thing I have left, my testimony and full cooperation to ensure you receive every penny owed to you. I don't ask for forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I want you to know that watching you fight for your future, when I tried to steal it, has taught me more about strength than anything else in my life. Become the doctor Grandma Eleanor knew you could be. Save lives. Help people. Be everything I failed to be. Your brother, who doesn't deserve the title, Max. I folded the letter carefully, tears blurring my vision. He actually gets it. Growth often comes from our lowest moments, Jonathan observed. Do you think he'll be okay in prison? He's in protective custody, and with his cooperation, he'll likely serve in a minimum security facility. He'll have access to education programs, therapy, addiction counseling.